and rolling. Wait, watch this. Here we go. Before we get going anywhere else, hold on.
Thank you for being a friend. Travel down the road and back again. Your heart is
welcome. Oh, and there goes the dog. I don't know if anybody can hear that, but that was the theme song to Golden Girls. Thank you for being a friend, which we talked about as we were conceiving this to be our theme song. So we'll see. We'll see if we can make that happen at some point in the future here.
I think it's a go. I love it.
I think so too. Well, welcome everybody to our very first episode of what we're calling Word on the Street, the 6th Street Playhouse talk show. My name is Patrick Varner, and this is my co-host.
Hi, I'm Rodney Fierce.
There we go. And the show is sort of evolving, and we'll figure out exactly what it is as we go along. Our again, Golden Girls theme song is sort of how we're starting. And then the other thing that we discussed as well is that we're taking Oprah's old time slot, so 4 p.m. on weekday afternoons. So that's you can't go wrong starting there, right?
Exactly. I'm sure she'd be pleased.
She would be very, very pleased. I'm certain of it. One thing that Rodney and I share, we're both on the board here at the 6th Street Playhouse, which is very exciting, especially in a time right now. Wouldn't you say, Rodney?
Yeah. We get to rethink how theater is supposed to happen now, because it can't happen, unfortunately, in its traditional forms. And so one thing that we thought of with this podcast was, how can we talk about what theater is going to become? So
totally. And that's actually a really great entry, I think, into our very first guest on our show, which is going to be very exciting. Hello, welcome, Jamal.
Hello. Good afternoon. How's everybody doing?
Doing well at the end of the Zoom day. Yeah,
thanks for having me on. I guess this would be the what we would call today Impeachment Day 2.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
Impeachment Redux. Maybe it sticks.
Yeah. Okay, I like that better. Yeah, I like that.
I did see somebody on Twitter today. It was Impeachment 2 Election Boogaloo, which I kind of that has a nice.
We have to have fun with it, right? Because we're in a mess. We're in a hot mess right now. So.
I feel like Gwen Stefani said it best when she was like, "This is bananas, BANANAS." Like, yes.
Gwenny was onto something. That's for sure.
Yeah. She's innovative there.
That's right. Well, Jamal, welcome. We're thrilled to have you here on our maiden voyage of our little talk show that we've got here.
No, right? Be breaking new ground. I am all about that.
For sure. It's going to be great. Jamal, why don't you kick us off here? Why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey in theater, where you sort of grew up and what you're up to these days?
Yeah, sure. So I'm originally from New York City, and I was born on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, and I moved to the Bronx when I was about 8 years old. And I was a music kid. I played in neighborhood bands and school bands and all that stuff. Had always wrote songs or poems, and so that was always like part of my language and a way of expressing myself. And then when I got older and I was going through kind of a tough time in my life, I had focused more on the spoken word, and then that kind of brought me to this. I joined this group called Universes. At the time, we were called Universes from the Bronx side. Now, Universes is a New York-based group that now is kind of, everyone lives in different parts of the country. But when we started, it was 5 people from the well, not all from the Bronx, 4 from the Bronx, and 1 was from Brooklyn. And we did. Brooklyn is always in the house, no matter where. And then we did, so we were doing a lot of spoken word / theatrical presentations with music infused, right? And so that really spoke to me because those were the things that I kind of grew up with. I grew up, like I played percussion, so also in school bands. And so rhythm and spoken word and the written word and expression was just part of, I felt natural in that world. And so but I didn't know a lot about theater growing up. My mother took me to the first place she took me to was Mama, I Want to Sing on Broadway. And, you know, then a few August Wilson plays. So that was my exposure to theater, but we didn't have it in the school I went to. Again, they were more music based. So when I discovered, so when I started doing the spoken word and all that and doing the work with universes, people that I started to run into would question whether or not I was acting or doing theater. And I was like, no. And they were like, you should consider that. And I was like, and I started to explore that more. And so that's how I got into theater. Then I started studying, went to HB Studios and started, you know, I had already gotten out of college, so I didn't go back to school for theater, but like most things, if I'm interested in it, I'm going to dig as deep as I possibly can. And then we all know there's no replacement for actually doing. So I had the opportunity to be doing with universes and growing my skill set. And so that's kind of where, you know, everything kind of started coming together for me theatrically. And then obviously I've done work on my own. I've directed plays and things like that. And now brings me to this point in time in my career where I am, it's not the first solo show I wrote. Actually, I wrote a solo show a long time ago and I did it at the Labyrinth Theater had their farm series with summer intensive. And I did a reading of a play I wrote there called God Took Away His Poem. And right now I just want to say, God, please forget that play. But but I had to start somewhere. And so that was the first solo piece I wrote. And now currently working, super happy to be working with 6th Street, supporting my work. And I'm working on a piece called Crawfish, We the Invisible, which is about homelessness in America, but it's through the lens of this one homeless man who originated from New Orleans and is displaced and came to the Bay Area and found himself without a place to live after putting all his money into caring for his mother. And again, when I write something, you know, a lot of writers get the question of, well, is this a true story or is this personal to you? For me, a lot of my story finds its way into my work, but it's not all autobiographical by any means. My connection to the reality of homelessness is that I feel like I've almost been there several times myself. And so I know how fragile, you know, many of us are, like the day-to-day existence of living from paycheck to paycheck. I totally understand what that's like. And so, yeah, so this is kind of my buy-in to writing this piece. And the one last thing, the character Crawfish was actually born out of a play I wrote with Universe. It's called The Maryville. And that character was I wrote a monologue and it was that character. And then another monologue in another place. So I've been living with him for a while and I felt like I really wanted to explore his story more and talk about an issue which unfortunately doesn't seem like it's going away anytime soon. It's only becoming exacerbated with COVID-19 and people losing jobs and things like that, right? So, and fires in the Bay Area and whatnot, so.
Totally. Wow. Go ahead, Rodney.
Oh, please, Patrick, go ahead.
Oh, no. Well, no, so I was just going to say, I mean, for anybody out there who has ever seen a piece by Universes, it's incredibly, there's something really thrilling about it. I mean, it's energetic. Everybody always feels like it's in a pool of sweat after a show because it's so physical and emotional and the nature of the work too is just so moving in so many ways. And I want to come back to Crawfish in a little bit. But something else that you have been working on in the past couple of months is, of course, the Breath Project.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the Breath Project was birthed out of the murder of George Floyd. the witnessing of that taking of life that we all witnessed, not only in this country, but around the world. And it was a response that me and Marika, who is a friend of mine, also my director for the Piece of Crawfish and a longtime friend, and also the managing director for the Breath Project. So we were working on a children's piece, actually, that I was writing for Palo Alto Children's Theater, which is called Land of Lost Socks. Very different than a lot of stuff that I write. And then we witnessed the taking of George Floyd's life, and then our response was kind of like, what can we do? You know, I have a child who is 6 years old and has some autoimmune issues. So I as much as I love to take to the streets, and I did a lot of that in the 90s, I couldn't do it this time around. And so the short answer is what became the Breath Project. And the Breath Project, it started out as an archive for artists to put work. Marika had asked me to record a piece that was 8 minutes and 46 seconds long. I did that, and then her feeling was, well, there must be other artists in the country responding in a similar way. Wouldn't it be nice to have a place to put their work? Yeah. And so the archive was born out of that idea. And then the festival, we had a festival in this past October, I think it was, which was a virtual festival of 8 minute and 46 second pieces. So we gathered theater partners from around the country by reaching out and building on relationships that we had, and just also focusing on what the goal was. The goal was to try to work on dismantling systemic racism within American theater while building an equitable community, right? More equitable community. And so I think it was all about the timing of when we approached people, that they felt the need to participate. So we ended up with 24 theater partners around the country. They helped with the call for submission. We received, we received over 100 submissions from around the country. And then out of that, 24 were included in the virtual festival. And then out of that, where we are now is we're commissioning. We're super excited. We got a private donor, and we're commissioning 6 new plays from 6 playwrights. One is a youth piece that I'll be working on, but so it's actually 5 other plays that, and yeah, we're commissioning, working, we're paying the artists to be artists and to write their plays and to expound on what they wrote for the 846, right? So again, and our mission is through art, action, and advocacy, we look to dismantle systemic racism and build a more equitable community. So those 3 things are key for us moving forward. Yeah, and we've got some great partners around the country, and I think talking to 6th Street, bringing 6th Street on as a partner as well. So we're super excited about the possibility of the work that we're doing with the Breath Project. We understand that it's a lofty goal, and that in no way can we figure out we're going to do that work in our lifetime. But if we can at least chip away at some of those inequities and make things better, then that's what the hope is.
It makes sense. I mean, it's a marathon in some ways and not a sprint, and the work that you're doing is part of that marathon. I actually want to ask you a somewhat political question about that. Given that the murder of George Floyd, that sort of racial moment helped inspire this amazing work that you're doing, I wanted to get your thoughts on what happened in the Capitol last week, and more specifically, I suppose, the police response there, and whether or not you think that some of this racial inequity has played a part in that response.
Short answer is yes. The longer answer is, I mean, I think like many of us, if you're right thinking and pretty much plugged in and understand, diversity and things like that, you could look at that and that had it been, I mean, we've heard this reported, right? Had it been Black Lives Matter, had it been another group, it would have been a very different response. And as I was watching it, that was my first thought, like, oh my God, if that were us, right? Like they would be dropping things from the sky, they'd be spraying and doing all the things that they do, right? To get us under control. And I also felt like one of my initial feelings was, if anyone ever had the right to respond that way at the Capitol building, it was people of color, and we never have. Right? We haven't done that, and so I don't know. I mean, I don't. Yeah, I'm not saying that to rile anyone up, but I'm just. It's just interesting how people can be swayed, right? And people can be led to believe something that is completely false. Again, I am of the mindset that I want to try to be able to talk to people on the other side who think differently than me, to understand their points of view. But I also feel as though, how do we start those real conversations? How do I stand ground and listen to something that is not rooted in fact and truth? How do I have patience with that? Because I mean, the sky is blue, right? And my skin is brown, right? So like, these are facts, right? There's nothing to dispute there. And I that's where I'm having the hard time finding, because I believe in leading with love. That's my kind of like how I try to walk through life in the last few years. And I'm having a hard time trying to find the love to support my patience in that. I'm working on it.
I definitely understand. Well, especially because one of the things that theater does is helps us illuminate truth and find truth and bring uncomfortable truths to light. And so seeing things that are the opposite of that sort of playing out on a national stage can be hard.
Yeah. And what I do like about working on Crawfish is that his story isn't necessarily based in a racial response, right? Or a racial action. It's a human story, right? I mean, we can find the racial connections in that, right? But that's not the focus of the piece. And I feel that we do, like with all of the craziness going on, we do still need to be reminded of the other stuff that's been happening in our backyard forever, for so long, right? And like, again, I'm showing my age now, but I remember in the 70s when a lot of the mental health hospitals were closed, and in New York and other places in the country, that's where a lot of people flooded the streets, and people who had, needed help, right? Where all of a sudden said, we can't help you anymore. Our doors are shut. You're on your own. And so I don't know when the problem actually started, but I do know it's been around for a long time. And like I said, it's getting worse because of where we are with the pandemic.
Well, and that's sort of, I mean, Rodney and I were chatting yesterday a little bit, just sort of in preparation for today, and we were talking through all sorts of different things, including our favorite cocktails, for the record. But I'm a Manhattan.
Yes.
You Manhattan?
I'm a Manhattan. Yeah.
I knew I liked it.
That is my second runner-up. I'm a dirty gin martini.
I haven't tried that, so I can't say, I can't speak against it. I'll have to try that.
I promise. I'll put it to you this way. I love them so much that when I found out that my husband didn't like them, it's a testament to how much I love him that I still do with all of it. So,
well, Jamal, next time when things start to open up here, we'll take you out and we'll introduce you to the world of dirty gin martinis.
There you go. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Well, but more to the point of our conversation, something that came up that was really kind of interesting, I thought, was there's something, of course, so unique about this moment that we're living in so many different ways. Both with conversations that we're having around the socio-political environment, and of course, on top of all of that, where the pandemic fits into all of that. Where do you see that? I don't know. There's an intersection right now between sort of the pause in the theater world and where theater is going to emerge on the other side of this. And I think it's interesting too, because I think as an artist, our response to these moments is to create, is to collaborate, it's to reach out and sort of reach beyond ourselves to try to make something. And at this time, when it's difficult you know, if not impossible in some ways for some people to do that.
Yeah.
That was one of the things I thought that really sort of struck me about the Breath Project was you created a platform for people to create and for people to have an artistic response to the moment. But where do you see, or where do you hope theaters will emerge at the end of this, whenever that happens?
Yeah. I've had an opportunity to talk to some artistic directors in the last few weeks, few months, and or even here, you know, like I was listening to I forget her name, the artistic director from ACT. She was on KPFA and she was talking about this topic, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things I've been hearing, and it's a nice takeaway, is that I think, especially theater, people who run theaters are finding out that they're able to connect with audiences they otherwise would not be able to connect to, right? Whether that's someone who doesn't have access because of, you know, inability to, you know, handicap situation, you know, they're in a wheelchair or something, wheelchair bound or a walker bound or something like that, or paralysis, or whatever it might be, or distance, or now, because, you know, even if when things do open up, how safe are some people going to feel coming to the theater, right? So I think one of the positives has been the access. People, like, even when we had our festival, we had 3,700 people show up over the weekend.
Wow.
That was amazing. Like, if we would have held something, I don't think we would have had 3,700 people come, like, you know. So I mean, that's great, right? And so I think that's one of the positives. And I think the other thing is, what I'm even trying to do with Crawfish is, like, how can I, working with a drummer who lives near Charlottesville, West Virginia, right? And came across him. His name is Stuart Gunter, and I came across him through the Breath Project. He had made a submission. He's not a BIPOC artist. He's a white artist, but he's an amazing drummer. And I was like, I want to find a way to work with you, right? And we just started to build a relationship. And so now it's like, well, how do I take some of this virtual Zoom? I mean, it's not that it's new to theater. We've always used, you know, video and film in theater, but how do I incorporate this into this piece and make it feel like it's, you know, really feel like it's coming from this moment, right? So there's that. And also, I think taking what we have, how creative we've become in this moment as theater professionals, because we've had to, right? How do we take that, I mean, and then bring it back into theater once it opens up and utilize it in a way that can still be considered theater, right? I mean, I know most theaters right now, I mean, I know Marin Theater basically recorded a film, right? They did a film project. I mean, people are working outside of their comfort zones right now to keep programming going. My hope on the more social justice side is that, again, after the murder of George Floyd, everyone was like, "What can I do?" I knew, you know, like, how I had never heard the term systemic racism as much in my whole life as I have in the last 6 months, right? And so, but just the awareness of that issue, knowing that systemic racism exists in every system, right, in our nation. And so for me, it's like the Breath Project is this, you know, okay, I'm going to work in my field, in my lane, and try to do what I can here. My hope is, and I know that there are other people doing that same kind of work. My hope is that when we come back, that we're just more mindful of that. We approach everything with an equitable lens and go, okay, how fair is this? You know, I mean, it's hard because, you know, I understand it's a business. You know, people need to keep their programming going. You have a base audience. You have a board that tells you, kind of keeps you in line about what they're expecting of you. So I understand it's not as easy as saying I want to, but I think if all involved work from that equitable lens, then I think we can get a lot done. We can get a lot done because the country is changing. Our demographics are changing. And we have to find a way to not make it, to strip away the privilege of theater. It's become a privileged art form where, like, the people who go to see theater are somewhat privileged, right? It's in, so if we can dismantle some of that privilege out of it too, I think we'll start to connect with other audiences, right, in our communities. And so, and I know Sixth Street is, again, trying to do that great work. So,
Well,
we definitely are.
Oh, are you going, Rodney?
Oh, sorry, I think it glitched for a minute.
I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. So, Jamal, just in the last 5 or so minutes that we have left here, tell us more about Crawfish. I know you've talked about sort of the genesis of it, and where Crawfish as a character began, but where is it now, and sort of where are you hoping to take that project? What's your vision for that moving forward?
So for right now, it's just to really get up on its feet and to feel it out, you know, and a lot of that is going to come with me in rehearsal. Because I only know one speed. I'm getting ready to do a show, right?
Totally.
February 26th, I'll be ready to do a show.
Yeah.
Lights or not, I'm gonna be ready to do it. But that said, it's a new piece. So obviously figuring out the kinks and figuring out what works, what doesn't. There are a few things that I want to try to incorporate. I'm trying to incorporate is rhythm and percussion is one part of telling that story, which is why I'm using a drummer. And the stage is also being built in such a way that hopefully it is going to be I don't know if you're familiar with a cajon, with like the drum that used a wooden box you sit on and drummers play. So that's the hope of the platform will have more tonal qualities to it that will allow me to also use that as a percussive instrument to show emotion for the character. So emotion, because Crawfish is not the crazy homeless guy. That's not who he is, right? And that's not most of who homeless people are. And so, but I want to be able to, his way of expressing emotion and frustration will be through rhythm. And the other part is with some supporting images. And there's a lot of song and comedy in it as well. So there's hoping that all those things, create an interesting story that people will willing to be engaged in for 45 minutes to an hour. So yeah, that's kind of it. And then in terms of that, after that, I mean, I don't know. I think, if other theaters are interested in working with it, obviously we'll take it from there. But right now I'm only focused on, kind of like, a basketball player. I'm only focused on the Lakers. I got the Lakers.
Yes.
No, whatever. But yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I'm like I said, for everybody who's out there, if to go check out even some YouTube videos and YouTube clips of the work that you've done, the work that Universes has done. It's really cool. I always love, you're talking about percussion, the use of the percussion and the sort of more physical elements to really enliven the internal life of the characters on the stage and sort of elevate the story to a plane that sort of sits above realism, but still is so deeply entrenched in the moment. So I'm thrilled. I can't wait to see what you come up with here.
Yeah, I'm excited. I definitely want to. I'm excited about the challenge of holding the stage on my own for that length of time. The blessing is that I come from a company who we all support each other in that way. And, when very oftentimes you're on the stage by yourself doing your thing and the other guys are sitting off to the side. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a challenge. But I'm up for it and I'm ready to do this. Yeah. So.
Jamal, first off, thank you. We're so excited that we get to work with you and that we get to help you shine a light on a population in the Bay Area that most of us have the luxury not to have to see. That is incredible and important work. And I know we're almost out of time, so I wanted to thank you, not just for partnering with Sixth Street and working with us, but also being part of, as Patrick said, our maiden voyage with our new talk show.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I feel honored again to be, part of the first broadcast, and I wish you guys nothing but fun and success with it, and have a good time with it like you're having. It seems like it's going to be really a good addition to what you guys are already doing. So I look forward to meeting everyone in person at some point.
Dirty gin martinis to get to. So.
Yes, yeah. I might have the gin martini first, and then follow it up with a Manhattan.
Oh, that's the spirit.
I would join you in that totally.
Might be in trouble, but what the hell? You only live
Awesome. Well, Jamal Jason, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And we look forward to chatting more with you soon.
Yes. Thank you so much, guys. And have a blessed rest of your day.
Thank
you so much. You too.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Oh. Are we here? Annie?
Did I just do something? Was that me?
I'm gonna click. I think we should click leave. I think that's what I'm. I think that's.
I think you're right. I think that's where.
Bye, goodbye.
Is there a leave button? Okay. Oh, there we go. All right.